Acrylics aren't like oil paints, they take a little bit more work to blend with. It's a really simple process, but there are actually a couple of key things that a lot of videos on YouTube seem to miss out. You might have seen videos showing you how to blend acrylic paints, where you get the brush, the paint colour, and some water. You add water to the paint until it gets this nice creamy consistency. And then brush the first colour onto the canvas. Then you take your second colour and you repeat that process. And that's the method that most tutorials on YouTube demonstrate, and it looks fantastic on camera. But when you try to copy this method at home, you might not get those same results. Sometimes it can look a little bit patchy and not very smooth. And it's not you. You're not making the mistake, it's just that technique isn't the right technique to use. Or at least, not the whole technique. So how do you actually get smooth blended backgrounds with acrylic paints? And the answer is layers. You just need to build up a few layers of paint over time. And we're going to do that now. First, you just need to wait for that first layer that I've just created to dry. And then you just work over the top of it with more paint. This could be the same colours as before, or you could add a completely brand new colour. And it's not going to go absolutely perfect in 2 layers. You might need to do 2, 3, 4 layers for this to become a completely smooth blended background, similar to how you'd get with oils. And it might look smooth here, but that's on camera. In order to get those super smooth transitions in real life, it does take a bit of patience. And eventually you are going to build up a soft blended looking background. But most of these demonstrations just show you this sort of 2 colour transition, which is all well and good if you want a very simple background, but what if you want a softer, more blurry, more out of focus background, closer to real life, or at least closer to what a camera reproduces? And how can we do that without using oil paints or any fancy tools? Well, the answer is one of these. Well, not one that size. One's a bit more like this. Most backgrounds in real life have a little bit more variation to them. They're not just sort of two colours. There's lots of different colour variations within there with soft transitions between those colours, especially if you're trying to create a soft, out of focus, bokeh, blurry background. You could do this really quickly with an airbrush, and I do that with quite a lot of my backgrounds, and that's quite a quick process. But what if you don't have an airbrush? You do it with a sponge. So we can add a bit more variation to that background by slowly dabbing paint onto the surface of the canvas with that sponge. You can add a little bit of water to that paint on that sponge, which is going to make it a little bit more transparent and allow some of those colours that you've already put down to show through. And I just keep dabbing with that sponge until the paint becomes dry. It's a slow process, it is time consuming, but you just continue to repeat that process, getting new colours, more colours, and just dabbing onto the surface with that sponge until the section that you are dabbing at becomes dry. And then you just build up more and more colours, more and more layers, until eventually you get to a point that you're happy with. But that's not everything. There's so much more that we can still do with just one extra simple step. We've now got this background that looks okay, but we've lost that initial gradient that we had. We've lost that colour transition that I originally wanted. So how do we get that back after we've done all this dabbing? And it's really easy. We can actually get back that original gradient by doing something called glazing. So once the painting is dry again, we can take a soft flat brush. I mean, it doesn't have to be a flat brush, but that's just what I'm using. We can get some water, and we can use that water to thin down the paint until it's basically the same consistency as the water. Maybe slightly thicker, but not too much. Almost like a concentrated ink sort of texture. I can then brush that colour over the painting in the same pattern that I did my original glaze. So for this one, I'm starting my blue around the outside and then bringing it closer to that yellowy green on the inside, like a circular gradient, like a vignette it's called. Once I've done my first colour, just like we did with that first step, I can get my second colour, again watered down to the consistency of just slightly thicker than water. I can bring it on and I can paint that over the surface of my canvas. And you can see how the colour actually starts to bring this painting to life. We get some of that yellow, some of that blue over the top of the details that we've put in, those variations that we've put in, and it just helps tie the painting together a little bit and also add that softer transition between the two colours, creating that gradient. I mean, you could do this with any gradient. It doesn't have to be the circle one. You could do it left to right, up to down, diagonal. You could just put random patches of colour everywhere if you wanted to. As long as you do this once your original layers are dry, and then you work wet paint over the top of those layers, then you can create whatever gradients you want. And because that paint is quite thin and quite wet, you're going to be able to blend them, create those transitions without it looking patchy and seeing the grain of the canvas underneath. But that's not all. We aren't finished with this video yet. I cannot just leave the painting as it is, because I'm going to need to actually paint something on there. We're going to turn this piece into a background for an actual painting. Let's do it.
I couldn't not paint something on here. I couldn't just leave it as it is. And what better subject than a hummingbird and a flower to go on this colourful blue background? It's been a while since I've painted any flowers, or birds for that matter, and it's been a while since I've created a small piece like this, so it was quite enjoyable to paint something that I could get done in a day. I've also filmed and narrated the entire process of this painting, including the background, the flower, and the hummingbird that I'm about to start painting for everyone over on the Studio Wildlife Patreon. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about the techniques that I use and the acrylics that I use and the way that I paint, then go and check it out. I'll leave a link in the description for you. You can see how I build up a structure from pretty much nothing using multiple layers of acrylic paint. It's about bringing those details, those values, and those colours all together to create something that looks realistic and looks alive, but in the simplest and most easy way possible. I love just creating little bright, vibrant, colourful paintings like this that are never going to be like in the museums or galleries, but they look good on someone's wall. They're bright, they're colourful, they're happy, they're friendly, and I don't know, just painting this made me happy. If this is a painting that you can see hanging in your house, then go and check out my website studiowildlife.com because it is available on there. I hope you found the video helpful and quite entertaining, and if you do want to learn a little bit more about my acrylic painting techniques, go and check out that Patreon, or go and check out some of my other videos on my channel. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.